before the Dreamcatcher hung in every home. It lived in the hands of Mother under the stars. The forest was breathing that night. I could hear it in the slow rise and fall of the wind through the pines, in the sigh of water beyond the trees, where the great lake lay stretched like a mirror for moon. The world was quiet except for the crackle of our small fire. Its glow touched the bark of the nearest birch and turned it to silver. My child shifted beside me, the thin blanket rustling as he dreamed uneasily. Each time his breath caught, my heart did too. I added another stick to the fire, listening to its hiss and pop. The scent of smoke was sweet with pine resin. I had always loved nights like this, wide, open, and ancient. Yet tonight there was a restlessness in the air, something that stirred the edge of sleep, like a finger tracing water. My grandmother used to say that the night is never empty. Even when you think it is still, the unseen ones are walking, watching, whispering between the trees. When I was a child, I feared those whispers. Now, as a mother, I understood them differently. The night is not cruel. It is full of stories waiting to be heard. It carries the dreams of those who came before us. And sometimes, if we listen closely, we can still hear their threads weaving through our own lives. My son stirred again, murmuring something I couldn't quite catch. His brow furrowed, his small fists tightening around the edge of the blanket. A bad dream, perhaps. I remember my own nights like that, how my grandmother would sing to me, her voice rough and low like the rustle of leaves. She told me that dreams were alive, that they had wings and voices, that sometimes they wandered too far and needed to be called home. So I reached for the small bundle beside me, a strip of willow bark, a piece of sinew, a few feathers gathered from the ground. They were simple things, but in them lived an old magic, one older than words. I bent the willow slowly, feeling its give beneath my fingers, forming a circle just large enough to fit in my palm. The circle, my grandmother had said, was the shape of the world, the moon, the sun, the seasons, the path of our own lives returning to their beginning. As I tied the ends together, the firelight caught the threads of sinew. They gleamed faintly like spider silk. I began to weave, looping and pulling, humming under my breath the song I remember from long ago. It was a song without words, a sound that held the rhythm of breathing and the pattern of calm. The sound seemed to settle the night itself. Even the wind slowed to listen. The web grew slowly between my fingers. Each knot felt like a heartbeat, each crossing strand like a path leading inward. I felt my grandmother's hands, how they had once done the same work, perhaps in a different forest, under a different moon, yet guided by the same quiet purpose, to protect, to soothe, to guard the fragile dreams of the ones we love. My people have always believed that sleep is sacred. To rest is not idleness. It is a journey back to the spirit's own trails. The body lies still, but the soul walks, meeting those who came before and those who will come after. When you wake, you carry something of that world back with you, a whisper, a vision, a feeling that lingers like dew. I have often wondered where dreams truly begin. Are they born inside us, or do they visit from the world beyond the firelight? Perhaps they are both, part of us and part of the land itself. When I look at my child's sleeping face, I imagine the ancestors bending close to see him, to bless his dreams. Maybe that is what keeps us whole, this endless exchange between the living and the dreaming, between breath and silence. The sinew tightened. The circle was nearly full now, only the center left open. My grandmother said that whole must always remain, that it was where the good dreams slipped through, gentle and kind, while the bad ones were caught in the threads until morning light could dissolve them. She said it was like life. Not every pain can be avoided, but light always finds a way through. I felt the truth of that as I worked. Each twist of sinew carried memory. Her voice, her laughter, the scent of wild sage drying by the fire. I missed her, though I could almost feel her presence here, patient and calm. The old ones are never far away, not when we keep their stories alive. My child sighed, his face softening, the tension easing from his brow. The shadows around us deepened, and the stars appeared one by one, a slow unfolding of light. The Milky Way stretched above the lake, like a band of woven silver. Somewhere an owl called, low and distant. The air was cool, brushing against my cheek like a blessing. I held the small web up to the firelight. It shimmered faintly, delicate and perfect in its imperfection. In its center, I could see the reflection of the flames, tiny, flickering suns caught in a world of threads. I hung it on the branch above my child's head. It swayed gently, casting shifting patterns of shadow and light over him. The forest seemed to listen with me. The whispers of the night softened, turning to the hush of leaves, the rhythm of waves against the shore. My child breathed evenly now, his chest rising and falling in the steady rhythm of peace. I felt the same rhythm inside me, as if the web had caught not only his dreams, but my worries too. We are all weavers, I thought. Each of us spins our small circle, trying to hold what we love, trying to keep it safe. Some use stories, some use songs, some use their hands and hearts. The patterns are different, but the intention is the same. In the silence that followed, I understood why my grandmother always began her tales this way. With a small act, a gesture of care, a story hidden in motion. The story was not only for listening, it was for living. The fire crackled softly, sending sparks into the dark. I watched them rise and fade, thinking how even a spark can leave light behind, if only for a heartbeat. Before the Dreamcatcher hung in every home, it lived in the hands of Mother, quiet, patient, beneath the open sky. And maybe, if you listen closely tonight, you can still hear her song in the wind, still feel her weaving peace into the night's wide web. If you've ever wondered where your dreams come from, stay with me a while. There's more to tell. Back then, even the wind carried meaning, and a bad dream could change a life. My grandmother used to begin her stories that way. Her voice low, the fire's glow reflected in her eyes. In the time before noise, she would say, when the world was still young, every living thing spoke the same language. I remember how I would lean closer, hardly daring to breathe, afraid the spell her words might break if I moved too suddenly. The time before noise, that was what she called it, before metal clashed and wheels rolled, before cities and shouting and the endless hum of what we now call progress. Back then, the earth was a soft place, and the spaces between things were filled with listening. She said that in those days, we did not dream only in our sleep. We dreamed while awake, walking through forests that whispered and lakes that remembered our names. To dream was to travel, a way of crossing into the unseen world without leaving one's body behind. Every person carried that gift, and every dream was a bridge. Some bridges led to ancestors who offered counsel. Others led to spirits whose eyes shone too brightly to look upon for long. But all of them were part of the same living map, the web that connected everything. When I was little, I would ask her where the dreams came from. She would smile and point upward, to the sky that shimmered with stars. They come from there, she'd say, but not from far away. The stars are just holes in the sky where the light of the other world shines through. What you see in your sleep is that light touching your mind. That idea used to fill me with wonder. I would lie awake beneath our hide roof, watching the faint glow that filtered through the smoke hole, and imagine that each spark was a small, waiting dream. Maybe the one I would meet that night. Maybe a story not yet told. Among my people, dreams were never dismissed as foolish imaginings. They were messages, sometimes gentle, sometimes severe. When a child dreamed of a white animal, it meant protection. When an elder dreamed of water turning dark, it was time to prepare for change. Some dreams carried laughter, others carried warning, but none were meaningless. My grandmother often reminded me that not every dream was a gift. There are polite spirits, she'd say, and there are those who do not knock before entering. These were the restless ones, the nightmares that clung to a sleeping mind like brambles. Yet even these, she taught, were not pure malice. They came when something was unbalanced, grief left untended, a promise broken, a truth avoided. The Dreamcatcher, she told me, was not made to destroy them, but to teach them patience, to hold them until light could show them their way out. I have thought of that often in my own nights, when fear or sorrow have come creeping through sleep's doorway. To think that even nightmares have lessons, what a tender, difficult mercy that is. When the world was still young, the people lived close to their dreams. They fasted, prayed, and slept alone by rivers or cliffs, seeking visions. A dream could give a person their name, their song, their path. My grandfather's vision had come to him when he was a boy. He saw a crane standing on one leg at sunrise, its reflection perfect in still water. When he awoke, he sang the crane's cry, and from that day he was known as Standing Crane. His song was sung at feasts, at births, and even when he passed into the spirit world. Dreams, my grandmother said, are not owned, they are borrowed. They visit when we are quiet enough to listen. That is why, in our stories, silence is never empty. It is the space where truth gathers its strength. I think that is what she meant when she spoke of the time before noise. Not a time without sound, but a time when every sound had meaning. The rustle of leaves, the lap of water, the low hum of wind against bark. Each carried messages, if one only listened long enough. At night, when I tell these things to my own child, I try to remember that rhythm. My voice slows, becomes steady like water against stone. I sing him the same lullabies my grandmother sang to me, old songs that carry both words and pauses. In those pauses, I feel the presence of all who sang before me. Storytelling, after all, is another kind of dreaming. It weaves worlds from breath, guiding the mind gently between what is seen and what is felt. I remember one particular winter when the snow piled higher than our doorway. The nights were long and the stars sharp as flint. We spent much time around a fire then, listening to stories to keep the dark from growing too heavy. My grandmother told me of the spirits of dreams, how they would travel across the sky in long, shimmering trails, seeking the sleepers who were ready to receive them. They're like the northern lights, she said, dancing so high we forget they're alive. She described how dreams carried wisdom from the animal nations. The bear's courage, the wolf's loyalty, the loon's song that calls between worlds. When a dream showed such beings, it meant their spirit was near, offering strength or warning. To the Anishinaabe, no creature was lesser. Every one was a teacher. To dream of them was to be reminded of one's place in the great circle of life. As she spoke, I could almost hear those animal songs beyond the wind, the low moan of wolves, the soft croak of a heron lifting from frozen reeds. Even now, when I close my eyes, I can feel them moving through my thoughts, ancient companions of the sleeping heart. Sometimes my grandmother would turn to me after a story and ask, "Do you understand?" I would nod, though I rarely did, not fully. It took years before I began to see what she meant, that dreams and waking are not separate lands, but twin shores of the same lake. When you sleep, you cross the water. When you wake, you return. The stories, the songs, the rituals, they are boats, keeping you from losing your way. Now, when I tell this to others, I see the same flicker of curiosity I once had. We modern people like to think of dreams as stray images, as the mind's idle play. But the old teachings say otherwise. Dreams are alive. They carry the voices of memory and spirit. They remind us that wisdom is not owned by the waking alone. Sometimes late at night, when the forest grows still and my child has drifted into slumber, I sit and wonder how the first dream came to be. Was it a sound, a shape, a spark of longing in the first mother's heart? Did the earth itself dream us into being? The elders say that when the Creator shaped the world, the first thing breathed into existence was thought. And from that thought came dreaming. To think, they said, is to dream with your eyes open. In the time before noise, people did not fear their dreams. They honored them, even the difficult ones. Each morning, before the first light, they would gather to share what they had seen. Patterns of animals, rivers, stars, and faces that carried meaning. The old women interpreted them, their voices calm and certain. From dreams, they learned where to hunt, when to travel, when to stay. Dreams guided births, healings, even marriages. To ignore a dream was to turn one's back on the spirit world itself. I often think about that kind of trust, the belief that what visits you in sleep is not chaos but conversation. It feels rare now, in this loud age, to listen so deeply. Yet every time I close my eyes, I listen for that silence beneath the hum of modern life, the place where breath and story meet. I believe that space still exists, waiting for us to remember it. One morning, a mother woke to find a spider's web shimmering with dew and understood what to do. It happened long ago, in the time when stories and life were still one thing, when even the smallest creatures carried lessons for those who watched closely. The sun had only just begun to rise, painting the world in a hush of gold and silver. A fine mist lay over grass, and between two slender birches hung a web, so delicate, so perfectly woven, that it seemed made of light itself. The mother stopped to look, her breath caught in wonder. Each thread held a tiny bead of dew, and together they formed a pattern both wild and precise, like a song the world had been singing all along. That was when she heard the voice, soft as the wind through pine needles. "Do you see how I weave?" it asked. The woman looked around, but there was no one near, only a small spider, moving gracefully along the web's outer rim, repairing what the night had broken. "I see," the woman whispered. "You mend what is torn." The spider paused, its many eyes glinting in the dawn light. "I do more than mend," it said. "I shape what will hold and what will pass through. The world itself is woven this way, thread by thread, day and night, light and dark. Every being has its part in the web." The woman watched as the spider crossed its design, spinning fine silk with steady patience. The wind stirred, but the web did not break. "Why do you work so carefully?" she asked. "So the light may rest in its place," the spider replied. "So that each drop of dew finds its balance. Without that, nothing stays whole, not even dreams." And in that moment, the woman understood. She would make a web of her own, not of silk, but of willow and sinew, to catch the restless things that haunted her child's sleep. She would weave a circle that remembered the spider's wisdom. Let the good dreams pass. Let the harmful ones be held until dawn. That spider was Asibikaashi, the spider woman, the guardian of the people, the watcher who spins protection and teaches patience. Among the Anishinaabe, her name is spoken with quiet respect. She is not only a spirit creation, but a connection. The one who binds mothers to daughters, daughters to grandmothers, generations linked by the invisible threads of care. I grew up hearing her story whispered at twilight, when the fires burned low and the air was filled with the scent of cedar. My grandmother said that Asibikaashi still travels the land, hidden in corners of lodges and windows, her webs glinting where sunlight slips through. She listens to the cries of children for the worries of the weary, and when she finds them, she begins to weave. To the old women, weaving was never just work. It was prayer, rhythm, remembrance. The thread carried meaning. The circle carried time. As their fingers moved, they sang softly, songs that told of balance and gratitude. "Nothing we make is only for ourselves," my grandmother would say. "Every stitch is a way of keeping the world from unraveling." I remember watching her hands as she braided my hair, her movements slow and sure. She would hum the same tune that the weavers used, a melody that felt like breathing. "Each strand has its place," she'd murmur. "If you pull too hard, it breaks. If you leave it loose, it falls away. Life is no different." Asibikaashi's gift was not just a dreamcatcher. It was a lesson of balance itself. Her web held both strength and gentleness, tension and grace. That is why her image endures in stories told by women, in the quiet rhythm of their work. To weave is to remember that creation is a daily act, that care must be renewed with each sunrise. In many villages, it was the grandmothers who kept the stories alive. They were the historians of feeling, the ones who knew how to turn pain into pattern, loss into song. When a child was born, they wove a small circle of willow for the cradle. When someone passed on, they tied threads of color to mark the journey from one world to the next. The web was not decoration. It was language. Each knot held a name, each feather a prayer. Even materials carried meaning. The willow bent without breaking, symbolizing resilience. The sinew came from the deer, whose gift of life reminded the people that all things are shared. The feathers, light as breath, honored the birds who carry messages between the earth and the sky. Every dreamcatcher was a small universe, a reflection of the larger web that held the people together. When I became old enough to weave my own, my grandmother guided my hands. "Do not hurry," she said. "Listen to what the thread tells you." I thought she was teasing, but then I felt it. The faint vibration as I pulled the sinew taut, the way it seemed to hum in my fingers. It was as if the material itself was alive, remembering all the hands that had touched it before mine. As I worked, I felt something deep and still awaken within me, a kind of knowing that needed no words. Perhaps that is what Asibikaashi's song was meant to awaken. The part of us that understands by doing, that heals through creation. Each movement became a meditation, a quiet promise that what is broken can be mended, that what is tangled can be made whole. In our traditions, women are often the keepers of such sacred crafts, not because men lack wisdom, but because women carry the continuity of care. They are the memory of the home fire, the heartbeat that keeps stories alive through generations. When women weave, they do not only create, they listen to the wind, to the ancestors, to the small voices within that ask for gentleness. There is a story that says Asibikaashi wove the first web not for herself, but for the Creator. The world had become vast, and she wanted to keep all beings connected. But she was small, and her thread was fine. So she worked tirelessly day and night, singing her song of balance. The Creator, moved by her devotion, blessed her web and said, "As long as you weave, my children will never be lost." Sometimes I imagine her still, perched between two blades of grass, her web trembling with light. Perhaps she hums even now, unseen, repairing what we have forgotten to tend. Perhaps she smiles when she sees us still weaving, still trying, in our human way, to keep love from slipping through the cracks of time. When dawn comes and the dew gathers on her web, I think of her patience, how she rebuilds each morning without complaint. Even after the wind tears her work apart, there is quiet heroism in that, the kind that mothers and grandmothers know too well. To begin again, to mend again, to weave again. The old teachings remind us that every web is temporary. The goal is not permanence, but presence. The beauty lies in the act itself, in the intention to protect and to connect. And maybe that is why her story endures. Because it teaches us to find meaning not in what lasts forever, but in what we lovingly rebuild. So when I see a spider's web glistening in the morning light, I stop. I remember the woman who listened to the spider's song, who learned to weave her fears into strength. I remember the hands of my grandmother, the quiet breath of the world when it is still and whole. Do you ever notice the small miracles around you, waiting to be understood? A circle of willow, a strand of sinew, a breath of hope, each holds the shape of life. When I sit to make a Dreamcatcher, I begin with silence, not emptiness, but the quiet that hums just beneath the world's surface, the stillness that waits for hands to begin their work. The fire beside me burns low, its smoke curling upward like memory. I can smell the faint sweetness of the wood, mixed with the scent of raw willow bark. In that scent lives the forest itself. The damp soil, the long afternoons of gathering, the patient trees that offer their branches. The willow hoop is always the first piece. It must be cut fresh, still pliant with sap, so it bends without breaking. When I shape it into a circle, I feel its gentle resistance, the reminder that life is not meant to be forced, but guided. My grandmother taught me that the circle is the oldest shape of all. The sun, the moon, the horizon, the womb, the turning of seasons, the heartbeat's rhythm. To live, she said, is to walk within that circle again and again, returning to what we thought we had left behind and seeing it new. As I tie the ends together, I whisper a small word of thanks. The circle holds more than form. It holds intention. It is a promise to honor what is endless, what cannot be undone. In our teachings, the circle represents not perfection but continuation, the truth that there is no true ending, only change. Then comes the sinew. Once it was taken from deer, strong and alive with memory. Now I use thread spun from plant fiber, yet I still imagine the spirit of the deer running within it. The grace, the quiet alertness, the knowledge of when to move and when to be still. I tie the first knot to hoop and begin to weave, pulling the strand across and through, over and under, in a steady rhythm. The web grows slowly, one loop at a time, and the pattern begins to reveal itself like breath fogging on cold air. Each thread, my grandmother said, is a choice. We all live inside our own web, woven from the things we do and the things we leave undone. No one else can weave it for us. Some parts are pulled too tight, others hang loose, but together they form the pattern of who we are. I pause to study the growing web. It gleams faintly in the firelight, like the surface of a calm lake at dusk. The The sound of night insects rises around me, a soft, steady pulse of life. I find comfort in their song, a reminder that everything, even the smallest, has its part in the world's design. When the web is nearly complete, I leave a small opening at the center. That space is important. It is where the dreams pass through. My grandmother said it is also the place of mystery, the part of life that can never be explained, only accepted. No web, however beautiful, should ever be whole. To be human is to live with openings, with questions that let the light come in. Next come the feathers. I choose one from a loon, black and white and soft as breath. Another from an owl, pale and silent. I tie them gently to the bottom of the circle, so they can move with the air. The feathers are the breath of life itself. When a child sleeps beneath them, they sway with each exhale, keeping time with the rhythm of the sleeper's body. The air flows through the web, and the Dreamcatcher becomes a living thing, breathing alongside the one it protects. Sometimes I add a bead or two, small and smooth. Each one is a spirit, a life caught briefly in the web of time. Some weavers say the bead represents the spider herself, the weaver who teaches patience and craft. Others say it is the soul of a dream that chose to stay, a reminder of what we've learned from our fears. I like both meanings. To me, the bead is a story that refuses to be forgotten. As I tie the final knot, I feel the weight of the Dreamcatcher settle in my hands. It is light but full of purpose, its shape echoing all the circles that have ever been made by human hands. I think of how we are always creating, whether through weaving, building, cooking, or telling stories. The act of making is how we remember ourselves. It is how we turn thought into being. When I look at the Dreamcatcher in the firelight, I see not just threads but history. Generations of women have made the same shape, their hands repeating movements taught by those who came before. Every loop carries a whisper of them. The laughter of grandmothers, the songs of mothers, the prayers spoken into the smoke. Even now, when I weave alone, I never truly feel alone. Their presence hums through the sinew, through the circle, through the air itself. I hang the finished Dreamcatcher near where I sleep, and the world seems to exhale. Outside, the forest shifts with life. The hoot of an owl, the rustle of something small in leaves, the long sigh of wind moving through pine needles. The web trembles slightly in the breeze, as if the night is speaking to it. In that moment, I understand what my grandmother meant when she said that making something sacred does not end when your hands stop moving. The circle you create continues to work, quietly, reminding you of your place within the greater web. The longer I look at it, the more I see how every element of the Dreamcatcher mirrors the cycles that shape all existence. The hoop is a world. The web is the network of relationships that sustain it. The feathers are breath, the spirit moving through everything. The beads are lives, each distinct yet held within the same pattern. Together they tell the oldest story we know, that everything is connected and nothing truly ends. Sometimes I wonder if this need to weave meaning is what makes us human. When the world feels uncertain, our hands search for order, for a pattern to follow, a thread to hold. Maybe that is why the act of creation soothes the heart. To make something with care is to say, I am still here. The world may unravel, but I will weave it again. The fire flickers low, and I can see my reflection in the Dreamcatcher's open center, my face framed by its web, the stars beyond glimmering through the hole. It feels as if the circle is breathing, drawing the light inward and releasing again. The night hums softly around me, a circle of willow, a strand of sinew, a breath of hope. Each holds the shape of life. If you were to weave your own story tonight, what would you catch in its center? Not every dark dream is an enemy. Sometimes it's a messenger asking to be seen. There are nights when even fire seems afraid to breathe. Nights when the stars fade behind clouds and the forest holds its silence too tightly, as if remembering something it cannot speak aloud. I have known those nights, the ones where sleep comes heavy but rest never follows. When the heart beats too loudly in the dark and shadows gather the edges of the mind, whispering the things we wish we could forget. My grandmother used to say that the night itself is alive. It listens, she told me, and it answers. The dreams we fear most, she believed, are not punishments but conversations. They are the echoes of what we have hidden away. Grief that never found its tears, guilt that has not yet found forgiveness, love that is nowhere left to go. These spirits do not come to harm us. They come to remind us that even pain needs a home. When I was a child, I feared those dark dreams. I thought they were spirits sent to test me. I would wake crying, my small hands clutching the blankets, my voice caught in my throat. My mother would sit beside me and stroke my hair until my breathing slowed. "It's all right," she'd whisper. "They can't hurt you. The web will hold them until morning." I remember watching the Dreamcatcher sway gently above me, its feathers barely moving in the air. I imagined the bad dreams tangled there, thrashing like trapped insects, unable to reach me. I felt safe, but I did not yet understand the full mercy of that web. It took many years to learn that the Dreamcatcher does not destroy what it catches. At dawn, when the sun rises, its light passes through the threads and the trapped dreams dissolve, returning to the world in softer form. What once terrified the sleeper becomes light again, released back into the rhythm of day. Nothing is wasted. Even sorrow can be transformed. That, I think, is the true wisdom of the Dreamcatcher. It does not promise a life free of nightmares. It promises balance. It teaches that we cannot hold only the light and reject the dark. We must learn to let them coexist, to let one soften the other. When I began to understand this, I also began to see that every person carries their own web. The mind itself is a dream catcher of sorts, woven from memory and experience. Some threads are spun from love, others from fear. The things we encounter, joy, loss, regret, all pass through us, and what remains are the patterns we weave from them. Sometimes, those patterns are tangled. But even then, there is beauty in the attempt to make sense of it all. Among the elders, there's a story about a woman who lost her husband in war. For many nights, she dreamed of him standing in the river silent, his eyes dark with sorrow. She began to dread sleep, afraid of seeing him again. But one night, she took her weaving tools and made a web as she had been taught. She hung it near her bed and whispered her pain into its threads. That night, she dreamed once more of the river. But this time, the water was clear and the man smiled before fading with the dawn. In the morning, the woman took the Dreamcatcher outside and let the sunlight fill it. The web shimmered, and she felt something within her ease. "He's gone," she said softly, "but he knows I remember." The Dreamcatcher, in that way, is not only for children. It is for anyone learning to live with loss. It is for those who wake in the middle of the night and cannot tell if the ache in their chest is grief or memory. It is for mothers whose arms still reach for what is no longer there, for lovers who lie awake beside silence. The web does not erase the pain. It holds it gently until we are ready to let it go. When I became a mother myself, I began to understand what it means to guard another's dreams. Children carry the emotions we cannot always name. They feel our moods as if by instinct. On nights when I sat awake beside my child's bed, listening to his uneasy breathing, I realized that my own worries had found their way into his sleep. That is when I began to weave again, not just for him, but for both of us. Each loop was a prayer for calm, each not a reminder that peace begins with patience. Sometimes as I worked, I could almost feel the shadows watching, the restless dreams, circling like moths around a flame. But I no longer feared them. I whispered to them instead, "You can rest now." I would say, "You have been seen." And one by one they would fade. It is strange, isn't it, how the mind mirrors the patterns of the web. The fears that once seemed endless can be held, named, and softened by the light of understanding. The same is true of waking life. A harsh memory, revisited with compassion, changes shape. A regret spoken aloud begins to lose its sting. The web reminds us that healing is not the absence of darkness, but its transformation into something we can live with. When my grandmother spoke of nightmares, she said they were spirits that had lost their way. They don't know they are frightening, she explained. They only know they are alone. Perhaps that is why they seek us, to be acknowledged, to be gathered back into the great circle where nothing is exiled. When I remember this, I feel tenderness even for my fears. In the stories of the Anishinaabe, every shadow has a lesson hidden within it. The trick is to listen without judgment. The same applies to the dreams that unsettle us. They are not always warnings. Sometimes they are memories in disguise, asking to be honored before they fade. Sometimes they are fragments of wisdom we have forgotten to use. I think of all the mothers before me, those who sat awake through storms and sickness, whispering songs to children who tossed in fevered sleep. They did not fight the darkness. They waited with it. They wove. They prayed. They sang until the night softened. The Dreamcatcher is their legacy, a quiet symbol of endurance. It says, even in fear there is creation. Even in sorrow there is grace. When I hang the Dreamcatcher by my bed now, I see my reflection in its center, the face of a woman who has known both light and shadow. I think of how the threads of my own life have held pain and joy together, how each has shaped the other. The web reminds me that healing is not forgetting. It is remembering differently. The night outside deepens. The fire burns low, its embers glowing like eyes half closed in rest. The Dreamcatcher above my head stirs with the faint rhythm of my breath. I imagine all the dreams it held, fearful ones, tender ones too heavy for words, and I feel grateful for its quiet work. Not every dark dream is an enemy. Some come to remind us that we are still alive, still capable of feeling deeply. Some arrive to teach us the courage of facing what we once fled. So tonight, if a shadow visits your sleep, listen to what it's trying to tell you. Even when the drums fell silent, the weavers kept working in the dark. There came a time when the songs grew quiet. The forest still breathed, but its rhythm was broken by new sounds, heavy footsteps, voices speaking in a language that did not listen, iron striking wood, prayers that named our world as something to be corrected. The old ones had spoken of change before it arrived, but no one could have imagined how swiftly it would spread, or how deeply it would wound. I was not yet born in those early days, but the stories were passing me like fragile feathers, each one carrying a trace of sorrow. The outsiders came with their crosses and their coins, their maps and their promises. They said they brought light, but their light was harsh. It burned what it did not understand. They built missions where our villages had stood and told our people that their ways were wrong. The drums were forbidden first. The missionaries said they were instruments of sin, that they called spirits instead of saints. So the people stopped playing them in public, though their hands remembered the rhythm long after. Then came the stories, our creation tales, our legends of the wind, the animals, and the ancestors. Those too were silenced, branded as superstition. Children were sent to schools far away, where they were taught to be ashamed of their own tongues. My grandmother once told me how the nuns cut her hair short and washed her mouth with lye for speaking her language in a dream. And still, the people endured. The weavers worked quietly in the corners of their homes, their hands moving by firelight long after the others had gone to bed. They said they were mending nets, fixing baskets, sewing clothes, but they were weaving something older, something that refused to die. The Dreamcatcher, once a sacred symbol, became their secret act of rebellion. It was a prayer disguised as craft, a whisper disguised as decoration. In the markets, traders began to notice these small circles of willow and thread. To them, they were pretty trinkets, nothing more. They bought them for coins and sold them in distant towns as curiosities. Soon, others copied them, using wire and beads, bright colors that pleased the eyes but emptied the heart. They hung in shop windows, their meanings lost beneath the weight of misunderstanding. I imagine how it must have felt for the women who saw their sacred work turned into souvenirs, to watch something that had carried generations of memory reduced to ornament. Yet even then, they did not stop weaving. Better that it lives, even change, my grandmother once said, than to let it vanish completely. She was right. For every Dreamcatcher sold to a stranger, there was another made quietly in the home, placed above a cradle or a sleeping mat, where its true purpose remained untouched. In the schools, children forgot the words to old songs, but their mothers sang them softly when no one was listening. In the churches, the people bowed their heads, but in their hearts they still prayed to the spirits of the river and the wind. And when the missionaries asked what they were weaving, the women smiled and said, "Just something for the babies." They did not lie, but neither did they tell the whole truth. The weavers kept the spirit alive by hiding it in plain sight. There's a kind of courage in quiet defiance. It does not shout or fight. It endures. It waits. That was the strength of the grandmothers, their patience, their unwavering belief that the world would remember itself someday. They carried our stories to the hardest winters, through hunger and grief, through the loneliness of exile. Their hands became the last sanctuary of a silenced world. When I touch a Dreamcatcher today, I feel that endurance. The web is more than threads. It is survival. It is the proof that beauty can persist even in captivity. I think of how many stories have been lost, yet how many more have survived simply because someone refused to stop telling them. A grandmother humming an old tune while washing clothes by the river. A mother tracing the circle of a dream catcher above her child's bed, whispering words she was told to forget. These were acts of love as much as resistance. Sometimes I wonder if Asibikaashi herself wept when she saw what happened to her gift. Perhaps she too felt the sting of misunderstanding. Her sacred web turned to ornament. But I also believe she never abandoned us. The spider woman is patient. She knows that even when her web is torn, she can spin another. And so did our people. They rebuilt what was taken, strand by strand. The changing world tested everything we were. Our languages fractured, our lands were divided, and yet through the women, the threads remained unbroken. The men, too, carried strength in hunting, in protecting, in teaching, but it was the women who kept the heart of the stories beating. They remembered the old songs, even when their voices trembled. They taught their daughters to listen to the wind and to trust what the earth still whispered. I once asked my grandmother if she ever forgave those who took so much from her. She thought for a long time before answering. Forgiveness is not forgetting, she said. It's remembering without letting the hurt own you. The web catches pain too, you know, but the light comes and it passes through. That lesson has stayed with me. The Dreamcatcher's strength lies not in what it stops, but in what it transforms. It turns fear into patience, loss into continuity. The people who tried to erase our traditions could not understand that to weave is also to heal. Every act of creation was a way of mending the broken circle. Now, when I see dream catchers hanging in shops or car mirrors, I feel a mix of sadness and gratitude. Sadness for what has been stripped away, but gratitude that something still survives. The meaning can always be remembered. It waits, like an old melody, for someone willing to sing it again. I sing it every time I tell this story. I weave it every time I shape the willow, every time I teach my child what each feather means. That is how we endure, not through resistance alone, but through remembrance. The circle is not closed. It keeps turning. Even when the drums fell silent, the weavers kept working in the dark. Their hands never stopped. Their hearts never forgot. If you've ever held on to something precious, even when no one understood, this part is for you. From village fires to bedroom walls, the Dreamcatcher traveled far, changing, but never dying. There is something almost tender about the way the world remembers pieces of what it once tried to forget. Long after the weavers had worked in secret, long after the missionaries had gone and the drums had been silenced, the Dreamcatcher began to reappear. Not as it once was, perhaps, but still carrying the echo of its heartbeat. In the early years, it was found hanging in roadside markets, its threads bright with synthetic color, its feathers dipped in glitter and dye. Tourists admired it, fingers tracing the loops, unaware that what they held was once sacred. They saw only beauty, unaware of the quiet prayers woven within. Yet even so, the pattern remained. The circle, the web, the opening at the center, it endured. Meaning cannot be erased so easily. It hides in form, waiting for understanding to return. When I first saw one of these dream catchers hanging in a store far from home, I felt a sharp ache. It looked strange to me, like a song sung in the wrong key. And yet, part of me was moved to see it there at all. For centuries, our stories have been buried, forbidden. Now, somehow, one had found its way into the hands of people who had never heard the name of Asibikaashi. They did not know her story, but they still wanted her comfort. Perhaps that, too, meant something. I have come to believe that misunderstanding is not always malice. Sometimes it is longing. People everywhere, from every land, are searching for something that connects them to mystery, to safety, to peace. The Dreamcatcher, though born from my people's stories, spoke in a language the whole world could feel. Its web became a mirror for human hope, a wish that our dreams might be kind, our nights gentle, our hearts protected. Still, I remind those who listen to me now, beauty without memory is hollow. When we forget where something comes from, we risk losing its soul. The Dreamcatcher was never just decoration. It was story, ceremony, medicine. It was woven with care, each part a symbol of relationship. The willow for the earth, the sinew for the animal, the feathers for the air, the circle for the unending. To take it only for its shape, and not its meaning is to hold a shell without hearing the sea inside it. Yet I do not scold those who hang dream catchers above their beds, even the ones bought from bright stalls or crafted by machines. I have seen how gently they hang them, how they whisper wishes for calm before sleep. I see, in their eyes, the same yearning that moved the first mother who wove the original web by firelight. Intention still matters. If the heart behind it is kind, the spirit of the Dreamcatcher listens. When people ask me what they should do, I tell them this. Remember the story. Speak its name with respect. When you hang a Dreamcatcher, imagine the hands that made the first one. The mother, the grandmother, the spider spirit whispering at dawn. Think of the lands where the wind moves through cedar and birch, where the lakes reflect stars older than memory. Let it be more than decoration. Let it be gratitude. In some ways, the Dreamcatcher's long journey mirrors the story of our people. We too were scattered, carried far from our beginnings. We too were misunderstood, sometimes romanticized, sometimes dismissed. Yet through it all, we endured. Like the web, we held what was essential. Culture changes, language changes, but spirit, if nurtured, survives. I have met people from far countries who keep dream catchers beside their beds, unaware of the meaning yet touched by the peace they bring. One woman told me she bought hers during a time of grief, when sleep was full of noise and loss. She did not know its story, but she said it helped her rest. She felt watched over. I smiled and told her that perhaps Asibikaashi had found her anyway. The spider woman does not measure worth by knowledge alone. She listens to the heart's quietest intentions. Still, I always hope that those who find comfort in the Dreamcatcher will also seek its roots, that they will learn the names of the people who first wove it, listen to their songs, honor their histories. Because every symbol, when lifted from its people, becomes lonely. The Dreamcatcher was born from the Anishinaabe world, a world of balance, of connection between all living things. To honor it is to honor that vision of harmony. There's a gentle irony in how far it has traveled. What was once hidden in secret to protect it from erasure now hangs proudly across the world. Some see that as loss. I see it as survival. The Dreamcatcher adapted to reach those who needed it, much like a seed carried by the wind, taking root wherever it could. The form changed, but the spirit followed. When I return to my community and see the women teaching their daughters to weave, I feel the full circle closing. The tradition lives not just in museums or markets, but in living hands. Children still gather around the fires, still learning the old stories about the web that catches both dreams and fears. They learn that what matters most is not the object itself, but the care within it. In that way, every dream catcher, authentic or not, points back to the same truth, our longing to be safe, to belong, to find meaning in the unseen. That is something no one can steal. The threads may fray, the designs may change, but the heart of it, the wish for peace, remains. Sometimes when I walk through the city, I see dream catchers hanging in car windows in cafes, in apartments high above the streets. I pause and imagine how far their story has traveled. From a fire in a forest beside a sleeping child to a glowing window in a place that has never heard the old songs. I wonder if Asibikaashi smiles to see her web stretching across time, still shimmering in the light of morning. From village fires to bedroom walls, the Dreamcatcher traveled far, changing but never dying. Its story continues because people still dream, still reach for beauty, still hope that the night can be kind. The next time you see one, will you remember the hands that first wove it? We are all weavers now, of stories, of lives, of fragile dreams. Sometimes I think about how the world hums too loudly now. Our nights are no longer quiet. Even in darkness, there's light. Screens that glow, voices that echo through wires, thoughts that refuse to sleep. We are surrounded by movement, yet so many hearts feel still and alone. The modern world has given us much, but it has also taken something, the silence that once let us listen to ourselves. When I lie awake and hear the rain tapping against the window, I think of the old nights, when sound was simpler. Firewood cracking, the sigh of wind through pine needles, a child's steady breathing beside me. Back then, the Dreamcatcher hung not only to guard sleep, but to remind us of rhythm. Life had its natural pace. Day following night, work following rest. Now we chase the hours, as if we could outrun the dawn. We forget that the spirit also tires, that it too must be soothed. That is why I keep one still above my bed. Even now, in this time of noise and hurry, it sways gently with the air from the open window, its feathers moving like breath. When I look at it, I remember what the old ones taught, that to dream is not to escape the world, but to listen to it differently. Dreams have always been our oldest teachers. They remind us that imagination is not a luxury. It is a language of survival. When our waking days become crowded with worry, dreams speak in symbols, guiding us back to balance. The Dreamcatcher, in its quiet way, asks us to pause long enough to notice what troubles us, to notice what heals us. I sometimes think that the whole world could use a Dreamcatcher now. Not a charm made of thread and feathers, but a shared act of remembering, a web woven between people, between hearts, between generations, a net to hold our collective fears. Until morning, we have built so much with our hands, machines, towers, glass, and wire, but we have forgotten how to weave meaning. Perhaps it is why we feel unanchored, drifting through a world full of sound but short on listening. When I speak to younger ones, they often tell me that they cannot sleep. Their minds race, full of images that never rest, of voices that never quiet. I tell them that our ancestors knew this feeling too, though their worries took different forms. Storms that would not end, crops that failed, loved ones lost at distance, or war. Yet even then, they turned to the same remedy. Stories, songs, breath. The act of sitting together in the glow of a small flame, and remembering that fear is smaller when shared. Sometimes I guide them in the old practice. I ask them to close their eyes, to breathe slowly, to imagine the sound of a distant river. I tell them to picture the circle of willow, to see it glinting softly in the light. Each loop, each knot, a reminder that every thought, even the restless ones, can find its place in the pattern. I tell them that peace does not mean the absence of thought. It means making space for stillness among the noise. When they open their eyes, something shifts. Their shoulders relax. Their voices soften. They begin to understand that what we call anxiety is not an enemy, but a kind of spirit too, an unbalanced energy asking to be acknowledged. The web, if we let it, teaches us to hold that energy without letting it consume us. The world today often speaks of progress as if it were a straight road stretching endlessly forward. But the old teachings remind us that life moves in circles. What we lose returns in new form. The Dreamcatcher itself is proof. Once hidden, now found again. Once sacred, now shared. The circle reminds us that endings are only beginnings seen from another side. When I see people rediscovering these old ways, lighting candles before sleep, keeping journals of their dreams, seeking quiet rituals to calm the mind, I feel a quiet joy. They are weaving again, though they may not call it that. Each small act of awareness, each pause, each breath, each gesture of care is a thread. It connects us backward through time to every hand that ever wove a dream for peace. Outside, the rain has softened to a mist. The candle on my table flickers, its flame dancing to the rhythm of my breath. I sit in the dim glow and feel the presence of those who came before me. I imagine them sitting just like this, listening, weaving, breathing in sync with the night. Their world is gone, but their wisdom remains, folded gently into the stories we tell. And what is storytelling, if not another kind of dream catcher? A web made of words, catching fear and wonder alike, holding them until they can be understood. Every story shared is another circle begun. One listener, one voice, one thread connecting past the present. There are moments when I wonder what our ancestors would think if they saw this world, its speed, its light, its endless hunger for more. I think they would be sad for our exhaustion, but they would also recognize it. They too knew what it was to lose balance, to forget to listen, and they would remind us gently that balance can always be restored. All it takes is to sit quietly for a while, to watch the flame, to breathe, to remember that we are still part of the same great web. When I look at my Dreamcatcher tonight, I see not only a relic of tradition, but a living mirror. The same moonlight that once shone on my ancestors now passes through its web and touches my hands. The same wind that brushed their faces moves the feathers above my bed. The circle remains unbroken. It holds everything: memory, loss, renewal, hope. We are all weavers now. Some of us work with thread, some with words, some with act of kindness. But all of us are spinning something meant to hold the fragile parts of life together. And that is enough. That is what it has always meant to be human. So breathe deeply. Let the old stories watch over you tonight. Feel the circle around you, quiet and infinite, holding your thoughts as gently as the web holds dreams. And when morning comes, may the light pass through, soft and clear, leaving only peace in its wake. The sun rises and the web glows with dew, a promise kept through the night. The forest is quiet again, softened by the pale gold of early morning. Mist curls low along the ground, and the last stars fade behind the trees. The fire beside me is burned down to embers, each one pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. I lift my eyes to the sky, where light is just beginning to spill across the horizon. The night has done its work. In my lap rests the Dreamcatcher I finished before dawn. Its threads are dry now, cool to the touch. I turn it slowly in my hands, watching the web shimmer as the sunlight finds it. Each knot holds a memory of the hours that have passed, the hush of darkness, the sound of rain, the soft rhythm of my child's breathing. It feels almost alive, as if the web itself has been dreaming too. My child stirs in his blanket, a small sigh escaping his lips. I smile. His sleep tonight was easy, his face calm. I hang the Dreamcatcher above him, on the beam that catches the morning light. The feathers sway gently as the breeze moves through them, whispering a soft melody that seems older than words. The world feels tender at this hour, like something newly made. The birds have not yet begun to sing, but the air hums faintly, the sound of waking earth, of day stretching its arms. I breathe deeply, and with that breath comes gratitude. Gratitude for the silence, for the fire, for the story that has carried me through the long hours of night. My grandmother used to say that dawn is the hour of truth. It is when the world reveals what it has held through the darkness. For her, the Dreamcatcher was proof of that, the visible shape of protection, born from patience and care. I think of her hands, steady and sure, weaving beside the same kind of fire that warmed me tonight. I wish she could see my child sleeping beneath this web, safe and untroubled, but perhaps she does. I like to think that she is here, in the light that glows through the threads, in the quiet breath of morning wind. I have come to understand that the act of weaving is also an act of remembering. Each Dreamcatcher made is a conversation with the past, one generation whispering to the next, "You are not alone." The stories, the songs, the gestures of love, they travel forward through time, carried by invisible hands. When I teach my child about these things, I will tell him not only how to weave, but why we weave, so that even in a world that forgets, he will remember. The night had its shadows, as all nights do, but the morning forgives everything. The light pouring through the trees is soft and forgiving, not harsh. It touches the web and turns it to gold, reminding me that the circle never ends, that what was dark can always find its way back to light. Sometimes I think the Dreamcatcher is a mirror of the human heart. It catches the fears, the doubts, the small griefs we carry, and holds them until we are ready to face them. Then, with the rising sun, it lets them go. What remains is peace, not the kind that forgets pain, but the kind that understands it. As I sit here, I can feel the weight of all the nights before this one, all the mothers who kept watch, all the hands that wove so others could sleep. It humbles me. Their strength was quiet but vast. I see now that love, the truest kind, is often invisible, measured not in words, but in small, patient acts repeated across lifetimes. I whisper a thank you to the old ones, to Asibikaashi, to every voice that carried the story so I could tell again. The breeze stirs in reply, moving to the feathers through the circle, through my hair. For a moment, it feels as though the entire world is breathing with me. The sun climbs higher. My child shifts again, blinking against the soft light. When his eyes open, they find mine, and for a heartbeat everything feels still. He smiles half asleep, and I know that he will dream again tonight, safe beneath the web we made together, the same web that has held generations before him. There is comfort in knowing that the circle continues, that our hands and hearts are part of something greater than time. I have carried this story through the night, and now I offer to you, as my grandmother once offered it to me. Let it rest beside you, like the gentle hum of the wind, like the warmth of fading embers. If this story brought you calm, let it rest with you. Share it with someone who dreams beside you. Now, sleep, let the web hold your worries, and may only good dreams find you. The fire has gone out, leaving behind the faint scent of smoke and ash. The world is hushed, wrapped in the thin silver veil between night and day. I sit with a Dreamcatcher above my child's bed, its threads glinting softly in the dim light, and I think about all that has been said, all that has been remembered. Stories, too, are webs. We spin them from memory and hope, tying words together until they can hold something fragile and true. Every story I've told tonight was woven like that, loop by loop, thought by thought, meant not to capture you, but to hold you for a little while in the gentleness of listening. When we share stories, we build something like the Dreamcatcher, a space where wisdom rests, where sorrow can settle without harm, and where light can find its way through. Perhaps that is what our ancestors knew all along, that words themselves can heal if spoken with care. I can feel sleep gathering now, soft as mist on the water. It comes slowly, like a tide rising to the shore, not to drown but to carry us gently away. I think of how many generations have drifted into sleep beneath stories like these. How many fires have burned low. How many webs have trembled in the night breeze. The pattern has never broken. It only changes hands. If you close your eyes, you might see it. The web of your own life, stretched wide across the quiet dark. Each strand a moment, a choice, a memory. Some are bright with joy, some shadowed with grief, but all belong to the same design. Look closely, and you will see that nothing stands alone. Every part connects. Every breath continues the circle. You are part of that same weaving, the dreamer and the thread, the listener and the voice. The light that flickers inside you is the same that shimmered through the first stories told by firelight. It has traveled through time to reach you, carried by countless hands, countless hearts. When you listen, you join that circle. When you remember, you strengthen it. So, before you sleep, take a breath. Let it be deep and slow. Feel the air move through you, as it does through the feathers of the Dreamcatcher, as it does through the trees, through the stars, through the quiet body of the earth itself. Let your breath remind you that you belong. To the living, to the dreaming, to everything that ever was and ever will be. If your mind begins to wander, let it. The web knows how to hold what drifts too far. If a worry passes through, do not chase it. If a memory rises, let it rest. This is not a place for answers. It is a place for stillness, for the gentle unraveling of thought. Trust the pattern. Trust the night to keep you safe until morning comes. I have told you all I know, and now the story, like the web, must be left to its work. My voice will fade, but its echo will remain, soft and steady, like the hum of wind against a window, like your heartbeat finding its rhythm in sleep. The Dreamcatcher sways above you, the feathers brushing the air, whispering blessings older than words. May your dreams tonight be kind. May they travel easily through the open center of the web, guided by light. And if any shadow lingers, may it find its lesson and fade with the dawn. You have listened well. The circle has been kept. Now close your eyes. Feel the night cradle you. Feel the warmth still lingering from the story, like embers glowing behind your thoughts. Let them dim, one by one, until only peace remains. The world is breathing with you now. Slow, patient, eternal. Now, sleep. Let the web hold your worries, and may only good dreams find you. If you'd like to hear more stories like this, follow the Circle of Voices. Subscribe and dream again with us.